I must say the mistake in these presentations are mine, but the people who really work a lot and help me a lot to do this presentation are Gabriela de la Paz in Monterrey and Monica Rosas in the SSRC, and also I give time to Dr. Insulza for his advice whenever we understand the information law and policies we wrote together. It's very helpful. So the idea that we had with Dr. Cody was that I will present how Mexicans see the U.S. immigration politics and policies, and then he will go on and talk a little bit more about the future and the perceptions in the U.S. with same policies. And I divided the presentation into three. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about some aspects of Mexican politics that I think are relevant, and then some views on what the current U.S. policies are, and then what future possibilities of a new immigration reform and an immigration system in the United States are. So, to start with, the first thing you need to consider is that Mexico has a double challenge when we talk about migration. As you can see, we share a very big border with the U.S., but we are also the transit place that goes from Central America, mainly Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, into the U.S. by land and by sea. So most flows and most undocumented flows into the U.S. are, of course, of Mexican origin, but the next important origin is Central America, and Central American flows come through Mexico. And basically they have two routes, one in each of the coasts. And that also presents a challenge. Just to give you an idea of how important Mexican migration to the U.S. is, I draw up some figures. So Mexico is a much smaller country. And if you look at our immigration profile, it's very little. It's less than 25% of the population. So Mexico is a pretty homogeneous country with very little inflow of people from outside, where the U.S. is the opposite. Big inflow of people, a much higher percentage. In Mexico, the foreign-born population, most of the foreign-born comes from the U.S. So that means that, we share being the largest in exchange of populations. The thing is, of course, as I said, numbers are smaller, but as you can see, we do share this fact that people travel from one place to the other. In Mexico, the next important population is Guatemala, and then Spain. If you look at the U.S., here are the numbers. So 29.5% of the population in the U.S. comes from Mexico, and Latin America is more than half of the foreign-born population of the United States. Now, in general, how do governments deal with this population, or how much does it amount as an important thing to care about? Well, the last number will give you an idea. Undocumented immigration or deportations in Mexico in the year 2006 were only 113,000 and a half, whereas in the U.S. there was 1.3 million undocumented persons apprehended. So what I mean is that the U.S. receives the bulk of the flow from Mexico and from Central America. And Mexico is basically a transit country. Now, if you look at the number of Mexicans which are deported by the U.S. Border Patrol, according to official figures, it's higher than the total percent of the foreign-born population in Mexico. What does this mean? It means that when in Mexico we talk about migration, we talk about migration to the U.S. We don't think about immigration to our country. We think about our people being here in the U.S. And that makes a lot of a difference, because as you can see, we are not concerned about people coming into Mexico as in the U.S. people are concerned about people coming into the U.S. So we have a different mindset. Although I will say, and in this presentation, I will mention lots of issues. We can discuss any issue you like afterwards. But overall, I would say that the treatment that the Mexican Border Patrol gives to Central Americans is worse than the treatment that the U.S. Border Patrol gives to Mexicans. Even with the dramatic events of the shootings, we have those dramatic events as well. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not here to complain, and I don't think any serious academics will complain without doing first, an inward-looking analysis of what immigration flows mean, but rather, have a more, try to be a, not objective, but more impartial analysis of what these migration flows mean to us, to all of us. So how does the Mexican government work? Well, once I've established that the main concern is Mexicans in the U.S., then I will say we don't have an articulated policy or an articulated action, governmental action, that actually is lobbying or is helping us to influence U.S. policy today. As you can see, our system is similar to yours. We have the President, the Congress, and the Judiciary. And within the presidential system, we have, it will be our equivalent to the DHS, which is the Ministry of the Interior. And the Ministry of the Interior deals with foreign-born, but also deals with deportations from the U.S., right? And deports people from Mexico back to Central America and other countries. And then we have the Foreign Ministry. And so you can have an idea, Mexico has 68 consulates throughout the world. 48 of them are in different cities of the United States. So it is a priority, right? Although it's not well articulated, in my opinion, because there are some study groups in Congress and there are some extradition agreements in the Judiciary, but basically it's the Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of the Interior who deal with Mexican migration to the U.S. Now, the most important policy that the Mexican government has of outreach towards Mexicans in the U.S. is the Institute for Mexicans Abroad. And basically this institute deals with getting people organized to send remittances back to Mexico. So although consulates are like U.S. consulates. So consulates take care of the Mexican population abroad with human rights help. If there is someone, for example, a Mexican who dies in the U.S., they are in charge of helping them, transport the bodies back and stuff like that. And they do a lot of protection of Mexicans in the U.S. But you will see the numbers and they are overwhelming, even though we have 48 consulates. And so the function of the consulate, which is to protect, is sometimes dwarfed by the function of the Institute for the Mexicans Abroad, which is a more active institute to get people organized to send money home. And they are the link with Mexicans who send money home and are connected to the Social Development Ministry